Fall in, players. That's right, it's me, your friend, Sergeant Laughter, cause you can't spell slaughter without laughter. And today, WarbossTae is gonna show you how to take your miniature from unpainted primer. Thank you, Trooper Diesel. You're up, sir. All the way up to base coats, shades, and first highlights. Oh, look at that beautiful, beautiful model. Those paint colors are so crisp, so clean. Now, as you can see, I'm still waiting for my wash to dry before I get my highlights, but I cannot wait for you to watch this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, press that like hearty heart, and we'll see you in the rest of the video. Fall out. Hop, 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 hop. That's right, players, we're going to take our models from primer all the way to tabletop ready. That means base coats, shades, and first highlights. Now, if you take a look at the length of this video, it is a little daunting because we're working on this one model and we're waiting for the paint to dry, and we're getting every step painted exactly the way that I would do it to build up your Cadian shock troopers. But if you think about painting an entire squad, you're going to be assembly lining these boys and girls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way through 10. So you're actually going to be going a lot faster. In fact, the time that it takes to paint this one model, I would say you wouldn't multiply that by 10. You would actually speed through most of these steps down the line, and then you're just fixing the mistakes that you make. Like if you get any paint splattered onto the wrong area, you're just going to be going back over that area. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I hope you enjoy watching the video. The paints that I used are, if you can get a Xandri Dust spray primer, then that would be the best, but I use this Bolt Action. I'm not even sure what color it is. This one doesn't have like a label saying what color it is, but I did use that and it came out pretty close. As you can see from Trooper Diesel here. Hey, how's it going? Never turn your back on family. It came out pretty close to what the finished uniform is going to be like. So if you could find a primer that works like that, that's good. If not, just spray prime your model, whatever color you use, and then use Xandri Dust to paint over that. Now the rest of the colors are Mornfang Brown, Abaddon Black, but I'm going to give you a little trick that you can use instead of Abaddon Black because you're going to be using so much of it. Find yourself a good craft store acrylic black paint. I got this for $3, which is less than half the price of this pot of Abaddon Black. Like that acrylic tube costs less than half of Abaddon Black, and you're just painting black on the model. I also use black to paint all of the bases, so imagine having to use my Abaddon Black to cover all of that because I went from priming the model to painting black all over the base. My pot of Abaddon Black would be gone just on the basing. So get yourself some craft store acrylic black paint and thank me later. Then we're going to use Castellan Green for the armor. I use Cadian Flesh Tone for the skin. I used to start with Bugman's Glow and then build up to Cadian Flesh Tone, but there's not really any need to. There's such a small amount of skin on the models. Lead Belcher, and yeah, I believe that's it. Really small amount of paints, which is good. You want a limited palette to get your models looking as good as this. And then of course for the shading, we've got our good friend Agrax Earthshade. If you're an Imperial Guard player, Agrax Earthshade is going to be like on your reorder list all the time because you can't replicate the shading of Agrax Earthshade. Isn't that right, Sergeant Laughter? Yes sir, yes sir. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. And if you'd like to support my channel and help me to continue doing this work, I'm really hoping to build up my patrons. So join that down below by hitting the link to get to my Patreon. And you can also join us in the Discord where we've got the Summer Painting Challenge going in full swing. And we're having a great time over there. So click the Discord link, join us over there, and let's paint some Astra Militarum Cadian shock troopers. All right, players, the first thing we're going to put onto this model is some Castellan Green. Is the recognizable green armor for all Cadian shock troops. You've already got the Xandri Dust uniform down, so the other piece of that puzzle is a nice drab Castellan green. Cadian shock troopers, the iconic regular human on a 40k battlefield. They used to only be sculpted as males because their bodies were so bulky. The miniatures were really broad-shouldered, bulky. Even when they did the upgrade sprues maybe last year to put some female heads on them, they just didn't look right because the profile of the bodies themselves were just too wide. Okay, we're gonna hit the armor now on the chest. That's why I really liked that these had female heads, because even though the torsos are the same, like, you're not gonna have female armor that looks any different. You're gonna get the belt buckle as well. Having the faces and painting them up feels good. The quality. Okay, I think, oh, canteen. If your guy has a canteen or your girl has a canteen, that is also in Castellan green. So body armor, shoulder armor, helmet, and canteen. While that dries, we're going to go on to the trickier part of the model, which is Mournfang Brown for all of your leather parts. Yeah, I've always been drawn to the Cadians, or the Imperial Guard as a whole, just regular dudes and dudettes. Used to love reading Starship Troopers. Such a great story and such a great description of what it would be like in a sci-fi world. Okay, these are some boot covers here. So you want to make sure your brush has a fine enough point where you can go at them. Oh, I forgot the knee pads. That's right, these guys have knee pads now. The knee pads are also Castellan green. What am I doing? Some more Mournfang Brown. Igor. Yes, master. Can you edit that part out where I painted his knee pads brown? I could, master. But it's funny. Castellan green. All right, there we go. Next part we're going to hit with that Mournfang Brown are the straps. Straps, belts, pouches, and the backpack. So this is easy because you can just go around the guys or the girls' belt and just about everything you see, except for these grenades, is going to be painted in Mournfang Brown. And get yourself a handle for your models. That'll really help. You can turn them all different angles. We're gonna hit the backpack next. I love this backpack. Like, seriously, I think this is what the old Cadian shock troopers were missing. A big, bulky kit Now, the goal is we want this Xandri dust color for the sleeping bag. So I'm going to try as carefully as possible to paint the Mournfang brown onto the straps that are securing it to his pack. If I miss, like if I get that Mournfang brown on the sleeping bag, it's okay, like right there, because we're gonna actually hit it with the Agrax Earthshade. That's gonna change a lot of the, it's gonna cover up some mistakes, and other ones it's gonna be able to help out when it comes time to highlighting. Then you don't want to miss the straps here in the front. Just want to get the right angle. Perfect. It's coming along really well. Let's hit the skin tones right now with Cadian Flesh. We're going to do this as a light-skinned Caucasian fellow. And then we'll do I'll do a tutorial on doing darker skin. So for this, there are 3 points that you're going to hit with the skin tone, and that is the hand. Now you could, if you want, start with Bugman's Glow, because that's a base paint, and this is a layer paint, so it's a little bit thinner. It's going to spread a little bit more, but because we we primed and undercoated this model with a nice beige color scheme, doing this as the base coat for the skin is actually not too bad. Okay, you might see some of your guys are going to be wearing helmets, guys and gals are going to be wearing helmets with these like straps, helmet straps. I'm actually going to do those. Let's take a look. My initial idea is to paint them in black. Yeah, if you do it in black, then it'll pop more against the skin tone and the green of the helmet. So that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, most of it looks like it's gonna be in black. So the skin tones are painted. What we're gonna move on to next is Abaddon Black. Now for this, you're gonna be painting, I'm actually gonna start by painting this onto the base because I want to eventually work up the basing. So I'm gonna get a nice big glob of it onto my brush. So we're gonna be spreading it around. Get some water. And while you're here on the base, this is completely optional too. You don't have to do it like how I'm doing it, but because I use a color primer, it actually helps me get this color toned down. While I'm here, I'm going to be taking that color, that black, and I'm going to be pulling it up to the guy's heel and then up to the front of his boot there. There aren't too many parts on this model that you're going to be painting in black paint, so we're going to try to be as careful as we can, even though I'm using a brush with a little bit bigger size bristles. Okay, there we go. We're just going to pull that paint to the other boot here. Perfect. Now, I'm going to be painting the last rifle. Just push that paint around. Try not to hit that skin tone. If you do, it's not a problem. Don't worry. Nothing is a problem with painting miniatures. Unless you do something just completely that's going to set you back. Most of the little problems that you paint, things that we're afraid of doing, mistakes we're afraid of making, they keep us from trying anything. If you see a pile of unpainted plastic, then that is a pile of potential. Right? It could be anything. You could paint anything onto those models and they could be the next Golden Demon winning miniatures. But until you do, they're just potential. They don't actually look like anything. When you paint a model, when you take a chance to want that paintbrush to work, then that potential goes and it becomes a finished miniature. Now we're just taking that black and putting it on the chin strap there. Now what I mean by that is a lot of us get frozen, right? We see these amazing paint jobs. We want to copy them. We want ours to look as good as the ones on the magazine. But ours is always going to look different. We're always going to have different colors, different shades and everything. So we shouldn't be paralyzed into inaction. We should always move forward. Leadbelcher was in everything in life. Guys, look at me. I've been painting miniatures for like over a decade on YouTube. Over 2 decades maybe in real life. If I actually go back and think about when I bought my first miniatures. And I always wanted to get better. I always wanted to move forward. And it's scary sometimes because you never know if what you want to do is going to work or not. So right now, I know my Leadbelcher is it's spreading out a lot. So I gotta try to get more of the thickness. There we go. There's not too much silver on your miniatures. This is kind of why I was waiting for a bit, because that black has to dry. While it does, get that helmet there. Yeah, like I said, not too much silver to look at. The buttons on the cuffs are silver, so we could get to that. Yeah, looking at the model there. You could also paint the canteen in silver. I'm seeing that that's a possibility, but I like the canteen in the green. That Castellan green is a nice color for the canteen. Okay, and while that black paint is drying, we can't have wet black paint to be painting our the silver onto. So this might be a time when I fast forward. But I want to tell you guys a little secret, or not a secret, but I want to reveal something to you. I actually lied to you about using Abaddon Black. Look at this pot. This pot is like $6-7 retail. It's ridiculous. If you're going to be painting 20, 30, 40, 50 models, spray priming them in khaki, Xandri dust, and then having to repaint all of the bases black, plus all the black that you're going to be using for the las guns and who knows what else, you're going to run through this paint pretty quickly. But let me give you a little solution. At your craft store or Walmart, anywhere that has a little craft section, you could get one of these. Black acrylic paint, $3, not lying, $2.99 off the shelf. Already, like, look how much more I'm getting, and it's black. That's the thing. It's not like a color like Xandri dust, where if you don't get the right mixture and combination for the color, then it's gonna really mess you up. No, there's only one way to do a nice hard black, right? I mean, you could have glossy and matte, and it might be like a little bit more gray, not as dark, but really, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna know. You know who's gonna know? Your bank account, because you're not gonna be buying pots and pots and pots of this stuff. So when I say use Abaddon Black, anytime I say use Abaddon Black, from now on, what I mean is use a cheap acrylic black that you can get from a craft store, hobby store, Walmart. I've also in the past used this one, Ceram Coat. This one I found works really well, and it dries matte, not glossy. This one's a little bit more of a glossy finish, but guys, for half the price, for who knows how much more I'm getting, like, this is the way to go. Your wallet is going to thank you. This PSA has been brought to you by the letter Q for quick dry. All right, let's fast forward a bit. I was thinking maybe we'll hit the washes, but I don't want to do anything too crazy while the paint could still be drying. So you see there are some splotches that I made some mistakes for. Like the green you can see has crept onto his sleeve there. The brown has crept onto that part of his uniform. And I'm going to show you that that's okay, because once you hit everything with the shades, a lot of those mistakes are going to disappear. Yeah, you don't want to do it too quickly. Now, the good thing about using this method of painting is I'm not really going to be painting just one guy, right? My Cadian shock troopers, I'm always going to be painting them in a unit of at least 10. Or in my case, since I'm working on the Cadia Stands box set, a unit of 20. So I'm not going to be just working on one guy waiting for the paint to dry. Let's actually jump onto when the paint is dried, and then we'll hit the washes next. All right, so now we're going to take our lead belcher and we're going to finish painting up the rifle. I let the model sit overnight. I'm actually a couple hours into the future from a few seconds ago. So now the rifle is nice and dry. I think if I painted this lead belcher on, then it definitely would have gotten the paint to run. So the clip right here, then the barrel right here, and right at the barrel tip there, and then there's like this iron or silver bar, so that's gonna get it. Yep, and that is gonna do it. So now our model is pretty much ready for washes. The main color wash that we're gonna use is Agrax Earthshade, the one-stop shop for all of your shading needs. Actually, before we get started with that, why don't we paint Raglan Flesh Shade onto the skin tone. So the hands, and the face. That's simple enough. Now for your Agrax Earthshade, I'm going to use a little bit of a bigger brush, more bristles on it. See if I can find where did I put my pot? Here we go, Agrax Earthshade. And I'm going to start from the top of the model and just work my way down. If you start at the backpack, just get a big glob of the stuff, then it'll naturally drip down into all the recesses, and you can just pull that shade down. You want to make sure you get it in all the cracks and all the crevices. And for sure, you do definitely want to start this when your model has dried from all of the previous base coats. There's nothing worse than wanting to start this step of the process and getting a little too overzealous and doing it before the model has completely dried. And then all of a sudden you see all of your base coats running into each other. And that's the worst feeling. Be patient, take some time off, go watch some TV, go work on your next model. In fact, if you're assembly line painting, then this wasn't a problem. Just line up all your models 1 through 10 or 1 through 20 and work on your base coats one by one. And then by the time you get to the end of the line, the first model you painted, all their base coats should be dry so you can get started with this. All right, that's it. So we're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna wrap this step up, this tutorial up, actually by painting repainting some of the base coats to bring the colors back up. All right, we're moving on to the last part of this tutorial where we're gonna be bringing those colors back up. And we're gonna start with Cadian Flesh Tone, which is the smallest area of color that's gonna be picked out, skin tones. So I'm going to start with the hands. And the goal is that you want to leave some of that nice Rakeland flesh shading in the shadows. Moving on to the face now. You're not doing too much work, you're just putting some paint onto the area that was already painted. Now we're going to move on to the armor, which is Castellan Green. Now you don't have to move on to this step. If you're fine with your models looking a little bit shiny because of the wash, a little bit washed out, then that's fine. Now with this, the Castellan Green, I'm going to be a little bit more liberal with the paints, and I'm gonna paint it on most of the area that was already painted, but I'm gonna leave that shadow, that Agrax Earth, I almost said Devlin Mud, that Agrax Earthshade shadow at the bottoms and between the armor plates. But areas like here, like the helmet, it's hard to get a good effect with the Agrax Earthshade. So I'm going to start at the top here where the light would naturally fall. I'm just going to slowly drag the paint down as if the light were naturally highlighting the helmet. I'm not going to slap my paint back on the whole thing and just spread it around. But there is going to be a little bit of shading going on. Okay, and head on to the other armor plate. Now if you're working on a model that has an exposed torso area, like he's holding his gun away from him, or she's running and like throwing a grenade or something, then you can really work at the chest armor. Luckily for most of these models, they've got their rifle slung across their chest, so you don't have to worry about highlighting the armor there too much. Nobody's going to be picking up your high tabletop standard miniature to check to make sure that you got the chest armor. Working on the canteen. Oh, it looks like there's a little insignia here that we can paint up. And the knee pads. Again, just hitting the area where the light would fall most naturally and leaving that shadow where the knee pads hit the uniform. Speaking of the uniform, that's where we're going to go next with Zandri Dust. And the same theory applies here. We're going to be working on the largest areas of the model and leaving that Agrax Earthshade. So I'm looking at here. And another thing that's going to help you too, it's a good technique to learn, is this using your paint strokes to guide the movement of the model. So like this model's running, so I want the light to fall naturally on the folds where he's running. So that's going to be helped out by my paint strokes. Instead of just slapping paint back on, I'm looking, okay, where are the folds? Which direction is the model running? How can I facilitate the person who's looking at my model to guide which way the model is running? Okay, I'm going to leave everything in there except for the parts that I can naturally reach with my brush. And that's another thing, you know, this is just building on our past steps. So if you make a mistake, you can go back, you can leave it. If you're a perfectionist like me, you can go back and just work on using the color that you used before. In this case, Agrax Earthshade to bring the shading back down. Now we're going to work on the cuff. So we want to keep the shade right by the buttons there. And we're going to apply the paint really, really gently on where the light would hit it. Now this is a whole mess of folds right here on the arm, so I'm going to start where there's the most surface material here by the elbow. And I'm just going to feather my paint outwards. And like I said, if I get some paint in the fold where it's not supposed to be, I'm just going to leave it. I'm not that much of a perfectionist. And I'm going to hit his sleeping bag up here. Sorry, my brush keeps hitting the camera. I think this is actually armor. Might be, but you know what? That's okay. I won't tell Sergeant Laughter if you don't. Okay. Our last step to build up these base coats and have a perfectly ready tabletop miniature is to use some Mournfang Brown to bring those straps back up. You can also use Eshin Gray on the black areas, but I'm not really too concerned about that. What I do want to do is bring up these leather parts. Now, if you want a darker leather, you could use Rhinox hide as the base. But I've always liked Mournfang Brown for the leather. Sorry, trying not to hit the camera, so I'm going to move the model a little bit lower. There we go. Now for the backpack, this is a lot of fun because there's such a wide area to play with. You can really find where all the creases would be. Oh, I think this is an extra ammunition pouch. Look at that. I painted it brown, but I think that's an actual. But you know, it has a button there, so I thought it was like an ammo pack. I was gonna paint that silver, but that's okay. All right, let's see if I do have any Eshin Gray around. There we go. Yeah, why not? Let's make this a fully realized tabletop ready model. Now with your Eshin Gray, you're just going to do the same thing and pick out the areas that are at the top of that piece so that it looks like the light is naturally hitting it like right there on the heel, right across the front of the other side of the boot. Then here, for the rifle casing, I'm just going to follow the line and up here where the barrel is. All right, we're just giving the illusion of some light falling on our rifle. And there you have it, folks. Your model is tabletop ready. Now, if you want to do some further highlights, I'm going to do another video where we're just picking out the top highlights, and that's going to be very short compared to this one. And like I said, you know, you're going to be assembly line painting these guys, so you take a look at the length of the video, and it can be a little daunting, but really you're working in a line, one to the next, and so it shouldn't take nearly as long as doing one model like this. This is just to show you how to get from primer to tabletop ready. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you consider supporting my studio through Patreon. We've got the links down below in the description, and if you'd like to check out our Discord server, then the link down below for that too. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Laters, players!